as we practice meditation together, there are certain questions that come up quite often in the mind of the practitioner. And one of them is, if we are practicing to let go, then why do we need to practice at all? We can just let go. Which sounds good, very Zen-like, but of course we have to accept the fact that we can't let go yet, even though we've been given that instruction. And the reality is, as we're practicing, we also need to hold on to a few things until we're ready to let go. Like the goal of Buddhist practice is Nibbana, what we call the unconditioned, the unborn, the uncreated, freedom from clinging, freedom from suffering. And so one who's reached Nibbana, the Arahant, they're no longer holding on to anything, they no longer need to let go of anything. Their mind is free, and we say that Arahant doesn't make any more karma. Whatever they do is not creating the conditions for more birth, more suffering, more attachment. So they don't make karma, but they still do things. So the enlightened ones will tend to teach, help people in many different ways. But they're no longer attached to a sense of self. They've let go of that. They've let go of ignorance, craving, delusion. So you could say everything they do is just a pure expression of wisdom and compassion in whatever the situation is that they're in. So if they're not with anyone, or there's no one there to teach or help, well, they may just be dwelling in the peace of the mind, what we call vihara Dhamma, a peaceful dwelling place of the mind. And they've already developed samadhi, they've developed insight, wisdom, so there's no need to practice, but they may still practice those things. They may still enter a state of samadhi, they still walk meditation, sit meditation perhaps. In those times when they're free, and their mind is just dwelling there. Their body may be struggling, like we all do. You get older, you get iller, sicker. Arahants get sick as well. But the mind is dwelling in peace. So sometimes the noble ones express amazing resilience, patience with the decline of their body, because they're no longer attached to it. And they, like Ajahn Chah, our teacher, display great compassion, teaching Sangha, teaching laity, because their mind is free from suffering. But there's no clinging, there's no self. So that's people who are at the end of their practice, as it were. While we're practicing, we still have to accept that we need to hold on or cling on even to certain things. The Buddha compared the practice we're doing to a raft that takes us across the ocean of suffering of the world. And if you haven't reached the far shore yet, you don't want to jump ship too quickly. You'll be struggling again. Even if you can see the shore, you know it's there, the far shore, but you haven't reached it yet. If you abandon your raft, you let go of your raft too quick, you'll be in the water, struggling, drowning, sharks nipping at your toes perhaps. You wouldn't want to do that. You cling on or hold on to your raft and use it until the end, and then when you reach the shore, then you let it go. So in the beginning of our practice and through our practice, there are certain things we still hold on to. But we're learning not to hold so tightly that they become an obstacle or part of the suffering that we're aiming to abandon. And that takes wisdom and understanding and experience in the practice to see where we may be holding on too tightly, or maybe we're just letting go too quickly and too much and giving up almost. And we tend to veer between these extremes. Ajahn Chah gave the example of you're going through the forest at night, and on a normal night, it's quite dark. If you don't have a light with you, a torch or a lantern, then you'll trip over things or bump into a wombat or something. So you have a torch, and you need that torch to walk through the forest just to show you the way. So you grip the torch. But when you get to your destination, you don't need the torch anymore. Once you're in your hut, you can put it down. So you grip as long as it's needed and useful, and then when the time comes, you put it down, you let go. The practicing can be a little bit like this. Your practice of letting go is something that can be quite subtle sometimes. Sometimes it's very obvious. When, like the Buddha said, when you're experiencing extreme fear or panic, which we can do in different situations, you might cling to just the recollection of the Buddha to strengthen your mind. Say people going in for surgery and they have great fear of the unknown and whether they'll survive it. I often recommend them to recollect the Buddha, recite the Buddha's name or the word Buddho, or chant quietly to themselves if they can, recollection of the qualities of the Buddha. In this chant we use Iti Piso, Bhagava, Arahang. You can visualize a Buddha, you can just recollect any aspect of the Buddha to calm your mind at a time when you may feel very stressed, panicked, for example. So you hold on, don't you? At that moment you're holding on to your recollection of the Buddha. It's a very obvious holding on, but it's useful to steady the mind when it would normally be scattered and agitated and very, maybe suffering quite a lot. Other kinds of letting go are quite subtle. Say when you're practicing watching the breath, trying to bring up mindfulness and sustain mindfulness, you might notice sometimes you're trying to control the breath or force your mind into a corner to stay with the breath, and it's painful. So then you recognize that after a while and you subtly relax your effort a little bit. You don't give up altogether, but you're simply adjusting the amount of effort you're putting in or the attitude that's lying behind your practice at that moment. Now, the practice of letting go it's not always simple, black and white. It's something you need to think about. We don't let go of the precepts, say, in our practice until they become kind of our normal way of behavior. Sometimes we have to really remember the precepts and cling to them at times when we will be tempted to do something quite unskillful or foolish. Your precepts are your raft at that moment. You don't jump ship if you have the thought to scream at someone or steal something or kill some pest or something. That's the time when you hold on to your precepts to stop you hurting yourself or others maybe. And it's correct. Sometimes you use your precepts to hold on. When we practice meditation, until we've mastered the mind, which is, to be honest, few people have done that yet, we hold on to our meditation object quite often. We put attention on the breath. An arahant and one who's experienced nibbana doesn't have to do that because their mind is already well trained. They can leave the breath behind. They could probably pick it up and be with the breath any time they want, any moment they wanted. But they don't have to. But for us, we're using it like the torch in the forest, our meditation object, whether it's the breath or recollection of the Buddha, or practice of loving kindness. At times we consciously hold on to that object and develop our awareness on that object. It's not the right time to let go yet. So the practice of letting go is not always immediately clear. You have to see where you're at in your practice, and we're all working through our karma. It's one of our daily reflections is that we own our karma. The people also say, well, if we're letting go of self, then who owns karma anyway? Who's receiving the fruits of karma? Well, because we haven't yet let go of self completely, we still have a sense of self coming up in our experience. Well, we are the ones experiencing karma. We still have a body, we think, we feel, we relate to other people, and that's how karma manifests. The results of our actions are coming back to us all the time. So on that conventional level, there's a self who makes karma and receives the fruits of karma. Even the arahant, when they're alive, they're still receiving the fruits of past karma. They may have accidents and illnesses, and people may misunderstand them, criticize them. But they are not making any fresh karma because their mind is free of self and attachment. But we also have to accept we still have this attachment, so sometimes we make karma. So we might as well aim to make good karma until we're ready to completely abandon the karma-making machine of this mind. We have to accept that we're making karma as we go along, so we are clinging to our raft, but we cling to the raft or the torch or whatever it is to help us get through life in a skillful way and bring up the qualities that help free the mind from suffering. The practice of letting go is not actually something you really do. It's not something you force to happen or do. It's a natural result of bringing the mind to see clearly and know clearly the way things are. Because when you see things clearly, you're seeing through the delusions of self, craving, attachment, and you're seeing that when you do crave and attach, you suffer. When you hold on to the sense of self in your experience, you suffer in smaller or bigger ways. So letting go actually is a natural step that arises out of establishing mindfulness, contemplating, reflecting on our experience, and seeing actually there's no self there. So you naturally let go of clinging to something that's a false idea, a false belief, a false view. So we're constantly letting go in our practice, it's just we haven't completely let go yet. Another one similarly I like is the one of the ladder. The other day we were cleaning gutters in the monastery, and you set up a ladder on a building and you go up the ladder to get to the top to remove leaves from the gutters because it's fire season and leaves are a fire hazard. When you climb a ladder, what are you doing? You step on one rung of the ladder to get up to the next, and as you go up to the next run of the ladder, you let go of the first and gradually get to the top of the ladder. So you're letting go of one thing, clinging onto another, letting go again, clinging to another. Our practice is very much like that. We do have to hold on to the Buddha, the Dhamma, the Sangha, meditation techniques to help bring mindfulness up, hold on to precepts, hold on to wisdom, reflections and teachings that we've heard and we think about. But as we practice, we're also letting go. So sometimes we're a bit confused. Am I holding on or letting go? That's doubt, isn't it, as well? What should I do? Should I do this or should I do that? Should I hold on to this or let it go? But the way we understand is through the experience that we gain through the practice, and you gradually learn what you should let go of and what you should hold on to. And that, you might say, is wisdom that grows in the mind. Ajahn Chah once taught a meditation retreat in America, and he's talking about these kind of things, and one bright spark in the group of lay people participating said, so if we are letting go of everything and just focusing on the mind and setting everything else aside, which is an instruction you might hear, then say there's a fire starts in this room. Does that mean we just sit there watching our breath, letting go? Ajahn Chah answered, he said, I'm not that stupid. If there was a fire in the room, I'd get up and put it out or leave the room. So that's the enlightened answer to that question. There are times when we don't just let go and pretend nothing happens and just go inside our mind. There are times when we do that as well. If the conditions are conducive and right, we do just meditate sometimes and just go completely in. Let go of the world and everything, and that's correct. But then there's other times where we have to act or do something or prevent some problem. And through experience, when we learn what are the best qualities to bring up in our practice that will help us deal with whatever life brings us. We are working through our karma towards Nibbana, and we haven't finished with that process yet. So sometimes we have challenges and difficulties. Our own mind throws up all kinds of worries and doubts, aversions, desires, and the world around us is changing as well. So one of the great benefits of the practice is it's helping you to develop these qualities that will prepare you for going through the challenges of life that you can't always predict. We are part of letting go is also learning to keep your mind in the present moment so you can really observe and learn from your experience. And so the Buddha said, let go of the past. The Buddha wasn't teaching us that there hasn't been a past or denying the past. He's pointing to the fact that every moment the past is we'll get becoming more distant from the past because as time passes, causes and conditions and events in the past finish, they end. They become a memory, and even memory is subject to change, and our memories can sometimes be deluded or biased. The place we're making karma and practicing is bringing the mind to the present moment. But we acknowledge the past, then let it go. And the future. The future is still just a thought or imagination. So we let go of that. It doesn't mean to say we can't plan for the future. It doesn't mean to say we're not ready for things that come up. But we know ultimately our place of action and place of where we realize the Dhamma and truly let go is in the present moment. So the Buddha encouraged us to let go of the past, let go of the future, become mindful and heedful in the present moment. Then you're ready for what your own mind brings up, what your body is experiencing, and then how you interact with the world. Good example of this is there's a lay woman who goes to our monastery in Adelaide, Bodhipala Monastery, who's a regular practitioner there that practices dana, meditation, keeps the precepts, has strong faith in Buddhism, goes to the monastery regularly. The other day you may have heard she briefly had her moment in the news, the national news, because she was at home a few days ago. I think it was on Boxing Day, day after Christmas, or maybe Christmas Day itself. And she's in her house, and there's a knock at the door, and there's a young woman covered in blood knocking on her door. She's got a glass door so she could see through. And there's this blood-covered woman there. It turned out this woman had been stabbed multiple times by her partner and was running through the streets from house to house, and nobody had opened their door, probably because it was Christmas. She couldn't find help, and she's getting weaker and weaker because she was losing blood, and she got to this house door, and it was a glass door, so she could see through. So the daughter of the household went to the door first to open the door, but she saw the lady covered in blood, so she just fainted on the spot. So now there's two people suffering. One is unconscious, fainted. The other is covered in blood and dying in the porch of this house. So then the owner of the house, the lady who goes to the monastery, had to struggle to get over her own daughter, get to the one who needed the immediate attention, and she could see, well, her daughter's fainted, she understood that. But she actually went to the one who was dying with blood everywhere, and she put pressure on the wounds, the worst of the wounds. She called the ambulance, the paramedics, and basically saved the life of this lady from a few blocks away who nobody had come to her help. It was only this Thai lady who came to help and saved her life. So a very noble thing she did, a heroic thing, saved her life, and her daughter recovered. I think it was just a temporary moment. Some people struggle with blood, they can't see blood. But the important thing is this practitioner was mindful at that moment and compassionate, had the proper, correct qualities of mind in that situation arising. And it's a good example of putting these qualities into practice at a difficult time. But she was mindful enough to keep her own mind steady in a very stressful, unexpected situation, and with good results as well, managed to save a life. This is how we practice letting go in, you might say, daily life. But it doesn't mean there's no relationship between what we're doing now and a situation like that, which probably most of us never will encounter in our life. But every day there are unexpected things happening that come up. And this training and practice in mindfulness, heedfulness, patience, compassion, kindness, all these qualities that we're bringing are being developed together in the mind. It's what we call the path. If you put a simple title on it, it's the path, Magga. So if things do come up, unexpected things come up in our life, we're ready for them. We can do something, hopefully look after our own state of mind and maybe even help other people as we go along. Another doubt that people have, about meditation and retreats. Some people who've never done it perhaps doubt, and they say, what's the point of sitting meditation with your eyes closed? What will you really learn? We don't necessarily learn a lot of book knowledge. That may come too as you hear talks and study Buddhism. But you're learning about yourself, you're learning about what's important, and letting go is partly that, isn't it? You're learning what's important to hold on to and cultivate, what's important to really let go of, which is the causes of suffering. So you gain a lot of experience, personal experience, that improves your life, helps you through the ups and downs of life. And someone on the outside looking at you, sitting with your eyes closed, struggling with the pain in your legs and your restless mind, might not yet recognize that because they haven't done it themselves. But actually what you're learning will help you, because these are very skillful qualities that can apply in so many areas of our life. And ultimately, anything that helps you to remove the experience of stress, suffering from your own life, your own mind, by understanding the truth and letting go of the causes of suffering, that's going to be good for you, and you may even be able to pass some of that on to others or assist others in their life, in their practice. If we never practice, then we won't know. When people asked this of Ajahn Chah, he'd say, well, if people can describe a fruit that you've never eaten before, in many ways, say, there are many fruits in, say, Asia that people in Europe or America in the old days had never encountered. Like before I went to Thailand, I'd never eaten or even seen or even heard of durian. It just didn't register in my mind. Then I went to Thailand and I ended up living in a monastery, Ajahn Anand's monastery, surrounded by durian orchards. These strange fruits that grow on trees. The trees are not very big and the fruits are huge. They're like the size of footballs, rugby balls, big spikes, and you open the skin and then you've got this sweet smelly fruit inside. I'd never heard of them before, so people would say, oh, have you had durian in Thailand? No, I don't know what that is, I don't know what it tastes like. And even if people try and describe it, you can't really know until you've tasted it. The practice is like that. We have doubts. We may look on the outside and think, oh, sitting meditation, what's the point? What do you get from it? One common question, what do you produce from it? It's not productive of anything. One criticism. So you could try and describe it all day, but really the only way to know is to do it, isn't it? You have to do the practice and then you start to realize. Like eating the fruit, you taste it and then you know. One way that you know that it's doing you good is when you feel, I want to meditate, I want to practice this, and if I don't or I stop, then something's lacking, something's missing. If you become more aware of the subtle beauty and happiness of the mind through meditation, even if only occasionally, then it gives you a taste of what your own mind has, the potential, the letting go of agitation, restlessness, doubt, worry, different kinds of attachment, aversion, negativity. If for some periods you let go of these hindrances, the mind becomes calm and you can see they're not really you, they're just visitors that come to the mind and then pass away, go out of it again. And your mind is inclining towards something much subtler, a subtler kind of peace, happiness. You're getting a taste of that, which will lead you on in the practice. It's a glimpse of letting go, a glimpse of the peace of the mind that has let go. So for the one on the sea, on their little raft, bouncing up and down on the ocean, they see the land in the distance. They know if they keep going, then they'll get to where they want to go to. In the beginning it's hard because you're in the middle of the ocean, you can't see any land, so there's a doubt, oh, will I ever get there? You might just want to give up. But if you experience a little bit of peace, it's like tasting the fruit or seeing the land in the distance, and then you get your strength to keep going. So don't give up, keep practicing. There are good things that lie ahead, but we have to keep working at it. So for the next period, we can meditate quietly together until you hear the sound of the bell.